Hello, I'm Kat Finch and welcome to the latest episode of the ServiceNow UK&I Executive Circle podcast series. Within our podcast, we speak to some of the industry's most exciting innovators, thought leaders and senior executives, all with the aim of giving you, our listeners, the inspiration, insights and market intelligence you need to help drive your organisation forward. Welcome, Jody. Thank you so much for joining us at the ServiceNow Executive Circle podcast. I want to start with a little bit of who you are, what you do, before we delving into it. So, yeah, I'd love you to introduce yourself, Jody, to our listeners.
Yeah, great to be here, and thanks for for bringing me over. And so I'm head of risk and sustainability for National Grid. We're a multinational utility company based here, operating the transmission network in the UK, but also in the northeast of the US as well, which is where I'm based in Boston. But I'm over this week for the sustainableIT.org Impact Awards and London Climate Week.
Amazing, and lovely that you could join us while you're on your trip. But what does your role entail at National Grid, head of risk and sustainability? What does that involve?
Yeah, so I'm head of IT risk and sustainability. So I oversee our risk posture and our risk approach to compliance across multiple regulations. And I also oversee our IT sustainability strategy. So setting our e-waste policy as an example and driving forward our energy efficiency targets and our emissions reductions through technology.
Amazing. It's interesting because talking to some customers, it definitely feels like sometimes the sustainability and the ESG agenda has sort of slipped down a little bit in recent. I mean, obviously with the AI hype, it probably has, swayed it a little bit. What's your perspective? Obviously, you just come over for sustainabilityit.org. Obviously, it is top of mind for you. What do you say to people who aren't necessarily putting it at the top of the agenda at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's when we talk about sustainability, we really have to think about it in the context of business value. There's obviously opportunities to reduce the amount of energy and emissions that we produce, but it's also about innovating and doing things differently. So it's about generating business value so that we call it the win-win scenario where, you can increase business operations and efficiency, but also do it in the most sustainable and responsible way.
Yeah. Interesting. And I guess today, talking about AI and new technology and that innovation, is that going hand in hand on how you think about sustainability and mitigating the risk around it? And are you thinking about technology like AI and how it can support that?
Absolutely. I mean, just going back to I'm just going to edge back into the previous conversation. Just on the concept of sustainability and technology, good green operations is just good operations. So we talk about responsible AI and sustainable AI. It's about not only using it really for the context that it's needed. So in the same way that we don't retain data for security reasons, it's for the context of when it's needed, why it's needed. And that comes into the way that we build servers and we build architecture and we consume energy and compute. And it's the same with AI. It's about executing AI responsibly to generate the outcome for the organization, but doing it in the right way.
Definitely. And that responsibility and that sustainability should be just embedded, like you say. It's just, you don't need the sustainability policy internally or the AI policy. It should just be part and parcel of business as usual today, shouldn't it?
Sustainability by design. Yeah. And we're actually working with another nonprofit called the Sustainable Architecture Group. And they're part of a wider enterprise architecture forum where they're looking at how we embed sustainability principles in enterprise architecture build patterns. So that it just becomes part of how we design technology and operations to deliver the work.
We often talk about it's no longer a technology transformation or a technology. It's about the business, and there's no point in talking about AI as the tool. It's about the challenges and whatever's available as a solution to mitigate those challenges, isn't it?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So going back to sort of the AI and the sort of the work that you're doing, are there any sort of particular innovative use cases and thoughts that you're exploring on how you can utilize AI in what you're working on?
Yeah. So in particular, I'm just going to use an example in compliance, which is not the most interesting thing that people want to talk about, but it's one of the real challenges that we have. So we have a significant program delivery organization, and we have hundreds and thousands of projects running at any one time, most of them agile, most of them working through PI sprint planning sessions, etc. The problem that I have with compliance over projects is really understanding the potential risk and compliance impact of every story, feature, and epic in every backlog of every project. I can't assess that with human beings because the volume is too big, the scale is too big. It's largely unstructured data, which makes it very difficult without sort of interpreting all of this in real time. That's where AI can really make a difference in compliance and oversight of project delivery. So I'm exploring opportunities with ServiceNow and others on how we can accelerate an oversight of compliance within our project delivery landscape.
Amazing.
So using generative AI to really call out those high risk, high compliance activities that are happening so that then a risk professional can go and take a look at those 5 or 10 highest risk items that could impact the organization. So we maintain our risk posture and we maintain compliance with our local regulations.
Amazing. So, I mean, it augments the intelligence needed, doesn't it? It automates what needs to be automated. It augments and supports eventually the human, the risk person being able to look at the data and interpret it in the way they need.
At scale as well.
Yeah.
And that's the important piece is when we think about compliance and we think about auditing all of the work, generally that's considered to be friction in the way that we're delivering projects and programs. What we really want is compliance to run alongside those programs, to be able to kind of interject at the right time, but only at the right time. And AI gives us the opportunity to run at scale alongside those programs without actually being embedded within those functions.
So are you very aware of the human in the loop and where you put that human in, or are you finding it's quite a natural progress that you're making where AI fits together in hand with your team? And
I think the human in the loop conversation is interesting because we're humans. When we see some of the output from particularly generative AI, when you see those things 3 or 4 times and you agree with them 3 or 4 times, it's very easy to get into the concept of hallucinating on the result yourself, because you kind of trust it and you build that trust very quickly, and it is easy to build that trust. So one of the cornerstones of responsible AI and sustainable AI is AI literacy.
Yeah.
And we in National Grid have an AI literacy program that we built up that's addressing specific personas within the organization, from C-suite executives to data scientists, down to back office functions and field engineers, with targeted training so that people really understand what AI is, how it can be interpreted within their role, and crucially, those things that they need to be aware of that could introduce risk and potentially introduce bias or questions around security and transparency, so that the entire organization is on a level playing field when we talk about AI.
That's incredible, because I talk to a lot of customers, and that kind of upskilling, it doesn't seem to be very prevalent in many organizations, and people don't seem to be very prepared for AI becoming part and parcel of their business. You seem sort of leaps and bounds ahead.
It's foundationally, I think every organization should be addressing AI literacy as a key cornerstone of their AI program. With sustainablet.org, we've just launched our AI toolkit. Within that, there is an AI literacy component of that toolkit. I know because I helped write it. But it does point to those foundational requirements. And there are different requirements, because understanding the risk of AI within the organization at a C-suite level is different to understanding the risk to the organization from an individual user that's perhaps working with certain types of data that are potentially inappropriate for using generative AI as an example.
Yeah, definitely. Do you find, some organizations are struggling with recruiting the right skills internally, but I guess you're not as worried about that because you've got this literacy program internally that you can look for something different? Or are you still struggling to find people with the right AI sort of technology skills?
No, I think we developed a really strong AI capability within our organization, but I think it's a journey for most organizations that there's perhaps a requirement in the market, and we think it's moving very quickly. So assessing the workforce of the future, this is going to be one of those key skills that people need to have, as well as green collar skills.
Yeah.
Pushing the idea that we definitely need to upskill people on their understanding of sustainability impacts and environmental impacts, particularly when we talk about AI, because it is a heavy consumer of energy. But the trade-off of that is that there's really exciting environmental things that can be done with AI that accelerate the decarbonisation of our networks and environmental vegetation growth and societal change. So there are trade-offs that we need to make.
Definitely. And it's that regulation piece that definitely is a challenge at the moment. I was having some interesting conversations earlier on this week with a number of different organizations around how you can use regulation to actually innovate and use AI as part of that. Because I think if you can codify regulation, so rather than running your annual report at the end of the year, did I meet all my regulations? Did I meet all my policies? Actually, if you embed it as part of what you're doing, you get that real-time accountability of adhering to the regulations in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're getting there, like with regulation. EU AI Act is an example.
Yeah.
EU AI Act gives a good foundation of where you should be thinking about using these things and where you shouldn't really be thinking about using these things, such as critical national infrastructure or where there's patient information, etc., HR. But then going beyond that, we really need to broaden that into what control frameworks look like. So the NIST AI framework, as an example, is a good start there. So by augmenting the EU AI Act with NIST and others, you can start to look at what controls really look like in terms of managing particularly generative AI, and how you want to think about security, and how you're going to kind of promote and innovate within your organization, but in a controlled manner.
And do you see that being needed across your full supply chain? Because obviously when you think about the ecosystems that you start to enter into, you sometimes you can only audit and you can only regulate what's in your control. But how are you looking at your broader ecosystem?
Exactly, and it's embedded in third and fourth parties and technology across all of our businesses. So, accelerating our front door processes, leveraging technology and higher graded due diligence processes around the technology that we embed, and then deeper third party assessments on our supply chain. That's going to become more and more necessary over time. Supply chain is a really big concern for all organizations. I head up our IT third-party risk function, where we're assessing multiple vendors across the UK and the US, and with some of the implications of AI. So we're building that into our assessments with those vendors, and by extension, the third and fourth parties.
Do you think the type of AI-led operation resilience that can be put in place will enable you to see that balance between risk and operational resilience across the organization more effectively?
Predominantly, we're talking about critical national infrastructure, and there's a certain amount of restriction around what we can and can't do particularly with AI. But the focus, I guess, for most organizations is that risk doesn't go away. And actually, I see, talking to my colleagues in the board meetings this week, we were talking about there's an increasing risk as more regulation becomes a requirement particularly around the environmental considerations here in Europe with CSRD and CSDDD. So we need to actually develop more and more capable control in the way that we deliver services, and that reduces the risk. When I started the sustainability program in IT for my organization, the cornerstone of it when we first looked at this feels like SOX year one. Okay, so historically we've reporting has been basically the ESG kind of view. It was the annual reporting, but we seem to be moving more to operational sustainability. So it felt like we needed to think about it like financial data. So treat environmental data like financial data, wrap IT general controls around it, similar to how we would protect data transitioning between systems for our financial disclosure. And we actually built our control framework to manage the sustainability data before we even measured any of the environmental impact of IT. It was really important that we got the control and the trust and the transparency in the data built in upfront.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Definitely trust and data. It was two words that don't necessarily go hand in hand at the moment, but it's getting there, isn't it?
It is getting there. But it's sometimes quite difficult to really get to the bottom of energy consumption data, particularly generative AI. It's not readily available from the hyperscalers because it's a moving target as well at the moment. You know, the advancements in semiconductors and chips is moving at such a pace that actually the energy consumption of training the AI model a month ago is going to be very different to next month and 6 months' time. So actually understanding that energy consumption, while we know it is significant, it is moving at such a pace that we expect that to come down dramatically over the short term.
So it's not something that worries you, because somebody did a guest speech and they actually inferred that in the years to come there could be rolling blackouts across the country of not being able to use, your searches, your ChatGPT, because they wouldn't be able to look after the energy consumption. But is that like a sci-fi?
I think we have to be conscious that there's energy demand in many areas. Data centers, EV consumption, etc. So there is an increase in demand for energy. I think when it comes to the energy consumption for AI and the increase, yes, it's something that we need to be aware of. We need to challenge ourselves on over time. But I think it's in such early stage of development that actually that we see a dramatic drop off that's happening, in every innovation. I met with one of the chip manufacturers this week in Canary Wharf, and we were talking about the acceleration of their new chips that were coming out and how much energy consumption they were, in comparison to the previous models. So we're seeing that dramatic shift. We're seeing technology advancing, and then we're able to train models a lot easier. And the model that came out of China that was producing almost 80-90% of the models from GPT at a fraction of the energy consumption. So there's innovative ways that we train these models, and we can only see the energy consumption go down. So I'm not particularly worried. I'm more excited about the capability of AI to advance things like vegetation management and decarbonization of the network and our everyday lives, and level up society to be able to deliver more.
So, Jody, I know from your research, your approach to adoption and implementation is underpinned by your strategy of reflect, reframe, and reimagine. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah. So, we're on the hype cycle with generative AI, and it's kind of where are we on that cycle? And I'd say we're probably on the kind of the peak and down slope of that first hype cycle, where there was a rush of excitement from all software vendors and all organizations to really understand the capability here. And I think it's at that point now where we need to reflect. We need to reflect on what is it that we want to do with this capability? How can this take us forward as a business, as an organization, supporting our customers and developing new business? And then at that point, the reimagine part comes in. So it's not simply about replacing, in my view, it's not simply about replacing an existing process that's done through AI. There's some of that, but it's not really groundbreaking innovation. It's reimagining and what's the future of the work? What can we not do? What is it? It's too difficult. So we've got to reframe, reimagine, and deliver that transitional change. So it's about understanding what are the things that we can change.
That's inspiring. Not just going for the low-hanging fruit, actually looking at the problems and changing those, not just automating an existing process that could that's an easy win. And I think that's part of the issue. In ServiceNow, we do our AI maturity index, and we've seen it decrease by 9 points. And we're sort of going, why is this? Why are we going backwards? And I think it's that reflection point of the hype cycle where customers and businesses and organizations are starting to ask, what is the value? What's the ROI? They all rushed into doing a proof of concept for AI. It was an easy win. It was a low-hanging fruit, but that didn't necessarily equate to a larger scale activity that could drive transformational change.
Exactly, and that's it. And there's a lot of investment that's gone into AI. Some of it has been a hit, some of it has been a miss, and I think we're now at that point where a lot of organizations are looking at the misses and going, "What are we doing there?" But it's about tackling those things that we just physically can't do. I mentioned earlier about my compliance requirements around projects, and that's one of those use cases for me where physically can't do this with people. So we replace reliance on understanding policies, soft controls. But in reality, I'm a passenger on that until such time as I can interject, or we create friction in the delivery of work. That's too difficult to do with all of that unstructured data. Generative AI solves that.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about that initiative and the work that we're doing with ServiceNow and other partners to work out a solution to be able to realize that.
So you touched on a glimpse then on the future. So are there any other sort of trends and predictions that you would like to see come about in the next couple of years?
The next couple of years, I think quantum's the next thing we're probably going to be talking about, and it was obviously associated risk with quantum computing, and all that goes along with that. But yeah, we're in a probably the greatest scale of change in technology there's ever been. But it's incredibly exciting to be part of that change, and to be part of groups like sustainablit.org, where C-suite executives and technology leaders are coming together to talk about how we approach responsible, sustainable technology and innovation.
I love your passion, and I hope it's really come across to the listeners and has inspired them as well. Thank you so much, Jody.
Okay, thank you.